It seems we are on the verge of the largest geopolitical shift in decades. The United States is finally losing India, a country that until recently was considered a balancer between Washington and Beijing, and is gradually moving into China's orbit. What began as a trade conflict over Trump's tariffs has now transformed into a full-scale realignment of an entire civilization toward its eastern neighbor. The consequences of this move for American policy and global security will be immense. After the August decision by the Trump administration to impose additional tariffs on Indian goods, New Delhi perceived this not as an economic measure, but as a political humiliation. According to the Financial Times, negotiations between U.S. and Indian delegations to reduce tariffs had already reached a deadlock by September. Officials told the publication that they were shown that they were perceived not as an ally, but as a threat. This sparked a reassessment of foreign policy that within weeks led to a historic decision. For the first time in its modern history, India signs direct military contracts with China. According to South China Morning Post and Kyodo News, this is not just about purchasing small arms or certain technologies. The contracts cover the full spectrum, from next-generation fighter jets and air defense systems to frigates and submarines. For a country that just 6 months ago was negotiating intensively with the United States to expand military cooperation, this represents an unthinkable step. But, as Bloomberg notes, geopolitical logic is prevailing over the logic of old conflicts. Until recently, India and China were on the brink of border clashes in the Himalayas, with their armies effectively measuring strength along the line of control. Now the tone has shifted dramatically. Insiders in New Delhi, cited by The Hindu, say that they realize the United States uses India merely as a pawn against China and is not prepared to consider Indian interests. In this context, closer ties with Beijing no longer seem like betrayal, but a pragmatic choice. Washington is in shock. Experts at the Atlantic Council call this the most painful geopolitical loss for Trump since Germany exited several trade agreements early in his first term. Losing India means the United States forfeits a key partner in the Indo-Pacific, while China gains access to a massive market, scientific talent, and an army of over 1 million active personnel. This is why American media have recently been actively discussing the concept of a new invincible alliance. If India and China unite in the military-technical sphere, it represents a fundamental disruption of the strategic balance. This is no longer just the economic BRICS bloc. It is a military tandem capable of challenging any Western alliance. Particularly concerning is the fact, noted by Nikkei Asia, that the agreement covers not only armaments but also joint projects in defense technology. Indian engineers will gain access to Chinese developments in hypersonic missiles and electronic warfare systems, while Chinese companies will be able to integrate into India's telecommunications and satellite communications market. This exchange could fundamentally change the military balance in Asia, the publication writes. The Pentagon is openly expressing concern. According to a former National Security Council advisor cited by Reuters, the United States risks facing two giants acting as a single unit. Within the White House itself, Politico reports, there is intense debate about whether to continue pressuring India or urgently seek ways to normalize relations. But time is running out. Chinese media, including Global Times, are already openly calling India a new strategic partner, emphasizing that past disagreements are giving way to shared future goals. Indian state television channels broadcast delegations' visits to Beijing, framing them as a historic pivot. And this creates a sense of inevitability. For Donald Trump, the situation looks catastrophic. His strategy of pressuring China and its allies is backfiring, as one of the United States' largest partners simply exits the game. If Trump does not take decisive steps to restore New Delhi's trust, America risks facing the emergence of an invincible alliance of two of the most populous countries in the world, with vast armies and powerful economies. All of this indicates that we are witnessing a tectonic shift in global politics. A scenario that seemed fantastical yesterday is becoming reality today. The United States is losing India, while China gains a partner capable of radically altering the balance of power, not only in Asia, but across the globe. Today's reality is that India is no longer the third player the United States relied on to balance China. New Delhi is drifting decisively toward Beijing, and this is happening in full view of the international community. The economic context of this shift is clear. After the tariffs imposed by Trump, Indian exporters were hit hard. According to Business Standard, India lost over $12 billion in August and September alone from reduced shipments of textiles, pharmaceuticals, and IT services to the United States. For an Indian economy already suffering from inflation and rising unemployment, this was a signal that Washington no longer regards New Delhi as a privileged partner. This is why Indian authorities quickly sought alternatives. China proved to be the most convenient choice. First, because it offers access to its enormous domestic market, where Indian pharmaceutical companies have already secured contracts to supply affordable medicine. Second, because Beijing offered lines of credit to finance Indian infrastructure projects. According to Caixin, this amounts to more than $50 billion. But the main factor is diplomatic symbolism. For US allies, this is alarming. In Japan and Australia, analysts write that the Quad alliance is effectively losing its relevance. If India moves away from Washington and Tokyo, the regional counterbalance to China collapses. South Korea is cautious, recognizing that the formation of a Beijing-New Delhi axis would increase pressure on its own exports. Europe's reaction is particularly telling. According to Der Spiegel, Brussels believes that losing India undermines all attempts by the West to form a democracy alliance against authoritarian regimes. French diplomats openly state that they warned the United States not to corner India. Within India itself, the government's new line is provoking strong reactions. Nationalists applaud the decision, seeing in China a partner that will not lecture or impose conditions. The liberal opposition, however, points to the risks, saying that India is becoming dependent on a country with which it has had conflicts for decades. But public sentiment is clear. Indians are tired of being treated as a junior partner by the United States and welcome moves that elevate India to the status of an equal player on the global stage. For Donald Trump, all of this could become a political catastrophe. With upcoming elections, the loss of India undermines his entire image as a tough negotiator. Opponents within the United States are already calling it the strategic failure of the century. Meanwhile, Chinese media solemnly declare that America has lost Asia. The strategic consequences are hard to overestimate. If India and China form a military alliance, this is no longer a local story. It means that Beijing gains a land-based partner with a huge army and shared borders, while New Delhi gains access to the most advanced Chinese technologies. Such a tandem could change the security architecture from the Indian Ocean to the Persian Gulf. This is why Western analysts are now speaking of the formation of a new invincible bloc. This bloc could integrate not only military, but also economic resources, from energy to digital technologies. All of this is not a one-time crisis, but a long-term turning point. The United States is losing India, China is gaining a partner, and the world is entering a new era in which familiar lines of division are changing before our eyes.